Good afternoon again, and how are you? I will be the moderator slash interviewer. My name is Professor Joan Pierre. As per my email, you read that I teach at LIU, Brooklyn campus. I started in the School of Business as a secretary and worked my way up to an instructor part-time. And when I retired, they promoted me to assistant professor, adjunct assistant professor, teaching business. Now I teach a lot of speech classes because my discipline is public speaking, which I totally enjoy. I love it.
Wonderful.
I teach undergrad public speaking, which I think is something they need. So I'm here
Very.
to interview you. So what at this time I would like you to tell us about who you are, your discipline, and the love of your discipline for the viewers who's going to be viewing this video.
Sure. So my name is Kathleen Axen. I have a PhD in nutritional biochemistry, and I have an undergraduate degree actually in dietetics because I thought when I was, in my 20s that I would like to do hospital work. But once I was introduced to research, I found that, that was really my path. Um, my research area had mainly to do with diabetes from a lot of different points of view. Initially, I worked with islet transplantation, which is
Mhm.
still a technique that's used in some cases in order to regulate diabetes in people with type 1 diabetes. Then I worked really for a long time on really mainly with animal models as opposed to human research, studying type 2 diabetes and how it developed, and to some extent how it could be controlled. And then towards, maybe the last 20 years, I've been looking a lot at the role of the liver and the development of insulin resistance in the liver, which is a really crucial part of the picture as type 2 diabetes is developing. And I'll talk a little bit more about insulin resistance, I'm sure, later.
Mhm.
Um, and then the role of diet. And I did quite a bit of work with ketogenic diets, and then also looking at the effects of different types of fat in the diet on the development of type 2 diabetes. What I love to teach. I teach a lot. My whole career, I've been teaching undergraduate and graduate students. I love the biochemistry of it and the physiology of it, kind of the basic
Mhm.
science. It's just
Mhm.
there's nothing more interesting than the human body as far as I'm concerned, and different ways of looking at it, how things are controlled, how beautifully things can be regulated, is really what I like to teach the most. I like food. I like to eat. I'm not a great cook, but I cook.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm very happy to be here with you.
Okay, so since we will be discussing more detail about diabetes and how people are suffering, there's a lot of obese people, especially they talk about so many obese people in America. So what type of food do you eat?
Did I eat?
You do
I
eat?
my mantra is eat a variety of
Mhm.
relatively unprocessed food. So I love raw vegetables. I
Mhm.
love fruit. I love whole grains. I'm not a big meat eater. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, I do eat meat, but kind of more like when I have
Mhm.
to. I like dairy products. I like yogurt. I like cheese,
Mhm.
um, milk. So I try to eat a variety of things.
Do you like ice cream?
I do, but I
Yeah.
have, take one scoop for myself. I don't eat it
Mm.
out of the container.
Oh,
Ways
okay,
of controlling your food
like
intake.
most people do. I love how you said you like the raw vegetables. Myself, I'll tell you a little bit of my whole family is diabetic. My mom she just turned 90. She became diagnosed with diabetes maybe around, I would say 70.
Mhm.
My sister is 71. She's been diabetic for years. My brother is 72. He's diabetic. My younger brother, so far, he's not diabetic. I'm not diabetic, and I just turned 70. So the reason why I feel and I know I'm not diabetic because I changed the way I eat.
Mhm.
When I grew up in Trinidad and Tobago, I'm not sure if you know Trinidad and Tobago, they eat a lot of, it's not even processed food. They eat healthy, but they eat the wrong type of, I would say, healthy food. They do not know how to really cook the food in a way to eat it because they use a lot of spices that are filled with a lot of sodium. And I came across something that a lot of people do not know, that sodium is salt. Isn't that interesting? Sodium is
Mhm.
salt, and that creates a form of hypertension. So in the Caribbean, they eat a lot of flour, provision, ground provision, which is carbohydrates. So I was reading an article a couple months ago, and a lot of people losing their limbs, their feet, because of their
Diabetes, yeah.
diabetes, hypertension. And it's so difficult to encourage people to change their eating habits, especially if they are senior like 65 and over, they are not going to change regardless of, even if they are diagnosed with diabetes,
Yeah,
they take the medication, however, but behind the backs of their family, they eat the wrong food.
right.
So they continue to be diabetic. So I just wanted to share this with you. Another thing I want to share with you, I have a grandson, he's 7 years old. His other grandmother loves to give him chocolate and ice cream, cookies. Meanwhile, my son, his dad, is trying for him to maintain a healthy diet, and it's like a struggling. So I'm going to ask you a question before I ask you the two main questions. I am very proactive in giving my grandson healthy food. My son is. However, his mom and her mom comes from a family, they eat like a lot of sweets and a lot of carbohydrates. So my question to you, how will you advise me to, first of all, my grandson said he does not want to eat the vegetables. He ate it when he was maybe 2 years, 3 years, but he eats a lot of fruits, grapes, strawberry, apples. He loves bananas. Then he eats the little fruit pouch. He takes it to school. So
Mm.
he said to his dad, but dad, I eat a lot of fruits. I do not have to eat vegetables. And my son is struggling in a way how to encourage him to eat more vegetables. So what
Mhm.
kind of advice will you give myself and for the viewers who will be tapping into this interview who have kids? What kind of encouragement can
So
we give?
this
Mhm.
this is a complex problem because it's a
Yes.
relationship problem, right? Not
Mhm.
wanting to
Mhm.
cause a war with your fellow mother-in-law.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Right.
it's also a nutritional problem. So I'll go from the nutritional end.
Right.
Fruits are not a substitute for vegetables. Most of the
Right.
things that you're talking about, grapes, juice,
Mhm.
those little fruit pouches,
Mhm. Mhm.
they have hardly any fiber in them. And the
Okay.
kind of carbohydrate they have really is sugar.
Mm.
Whereas vegetables have much more fiber, and the kind of carbohydrate they have in them is complex carbohydrate, which is
Mhm.
slowly absorbed. So, one is not the substitute for the other. Fruits are lovely, they have good things about them.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
also need vegetables and whole grains. And
Yes.
our grandson is at the age where his food habits are being formed, but he
Mhm.
also has the child's, sort of fear of new things,
Mhm.
preferences. You have to realize that children often taste things more strongly than adults do. So
Mhm.
something that's pleasant for us is not pleasant for them. So it's really a trial and error of figuring out what the form is that the child will eat. I have a 5-year-old grandson, for
Oh,
example,
wow.
and he loves long green beans. Don't ever cut them up. He loves
Mhm.
long
Mhm.
green beans that are kind of steamed, right? And so they're
Mhm.
still a little bit crunchy. He loves butternut squash if it's broiled.
Mhm.
It's just a lot of trial and error finding the form that they like. the other grandma, I mean, it's really for her daughter to tell her that,
Mm-hmm.
loving the child, doesn't mean that he gets a lot of sweets. And in fact, it's not good for his microbiota. He's not, developing
Mm-hmm.
the right kind of gut bacteria. It's bad
Mm-hmm.
for his teeth. And it's also kind of bad for his learning. Now is the time for him to learn a variety of healthy food. Um, your role in it, you're walking on eggshells.
Yes, yes. And it's funny you talk about cavities. He has no cavities.
Not
It's
yet.
not yet. Well, not yet, but for right now, no cavities. Okay, that was like an icebreaker for us. And thank you for your advice. I will jump into the question right here. I have it right here on my phone. And I do hope you're enjoying the little collaboration in
Yes.
getting to know one another. Okay, let's go right here. So did you have your dinner yet?
I had half of it. I
Okay,
made some soup the other day, and that's what I'm going to have later.
okay. The first question. Are there specific nutrients that act as powerful anti-inflammatories that individuals managing both conditions should focus on maximizing?
So one of the things that we tend to not have much of in the diet, but people often use as supplements, is fish oil. Fish oil is high in a type of fat called an N3 polyunsaturated fat. And although there's a little bit of it in some plants, really the only, strong source of it would be fatty fish like salmon, um, tuna, mackerel, the fish that are oily fish, not the white fish.
Mhm, mhm,
So that's a very potent anti-inflammatory substance, that kind of fish oil. Others are those that are found in fruits and vegetables. The more colorful, the darker the color, the more
mhm,
that it has of these particular nutrients. One category of them, they're called polyphenols, but I'll just call them the plant pigments. So
yeah,
if you have something, like spinach or kale, that's really dark green, or you have
mhm,
something that's purple, or the orange foods, right? Those
mhm,
those have those protective substances in them. So yet another reason to eat vegetables, right? That's going to be the
yes,
big source of those
mhm,
anti-inflammatory substances. Um, there are some that are anti-inflammatory, but we don't really tend to eat large amounts of them. And those would be, ginger and turmeric, and to some extent cinnamon, which are great to
mhm,
have in your diet, but you're not,
mhm,
having a quarter of a cup full of
mhm,
those,
yeah,
you're using
mhm,
them to season your food, but they should be part of your seasoning. They're
mhm, okay,
anti-inflammatory
mhm,
agents.
okay.
Those are the ones that mainly come to mind. As being kind of intensely that.
So you talk about the darker the vegetables. What about the cauliflower? I've seen lilac cauliflower. Have you seen the lilac? Is that safe to eat?
Oh,
Did they
definitely.
put
So
it
the
is?
only reason that cauliflower is white is that they cover it with the leaves. If you leave cauliflower to its
Oh,
own devices, at first you see it green and then you see it purple.
interesting. I have learned so much. And you touch on fish, the fish oil tablets. My son takes it. He said, when I was growing up in Trinidad, I took it a lot. And he's taken it because my son, his grandmother and his dad, which is his dad's mom, she died from a stroke because she was diabetic. She
Hmm.
never changed her eating habits, did not want to change it. So she died, and he realized that he had to take, she died when he was 9 years old,
Uh,
around 9 or 10. And when my son was 9 years old, he got up one morning and said, Mom, could you show me how to scramble eggs? And he ate not, I wouldn't say poorly, but he ate some of the wrong things. But as he grew older, around maybe I would say in his late 20s, he changed his diet and he's becoming more conscious of I want to live a long life, so I have to eat healthier. So I'm glad you mentioned about the fish oil. Okay,
I'd like to just say though that eggs
yes.
have an uncalled for bad reputation. It's not the egg itself, it's the
Mhm.
bacon and the way, the other
Right.
things. Eggs are very important parts of the diet, and in fact, although eggs contain cholesterol,
Mhm.
they don't raise your blood levels of cholesterol because they have other
Oh,
things in them that counteract the effect of that cholesterol.
oh, wow. I am
They
being so educated today. Thank you.
They also contain a substance called choline, which
Mhm.
tends to be too low in the diet and is very important for children's development. So your son having that egg, I mean, better if it's a
Yes.
soft cooked egg,
Y-
than a fried egg. But at any rate,
Yeah.
the egg
Yeah,
was
yeah.
important for him.
Okay. Yes, and my grandson does like the boiled egg.
Mhm.
Okay, very good. Great. Number two, given the complexity, how should listeners approach the topic of carbohydrates and blood sugar management? Are all carbs created equal in this context?
No.
Oh,
So the carbohydrates in your diet come in different forms, right? It's not only the form, the kind of molecule it is, but it's within a food. So when you think about carbohydrates, you have to think about the food that contains the carbohydrate.
Mhm,
Plant foods have their carbohydrate in the plant cells. And the plant cells have very sturdy walls. I mean, that's why, when we chew it,
mhm,
it's a plant, right?
right.
And so because your body has to break open those sturdy cells, it's very slowly absorbed. So when you have carbohydrate that is in a vegetable, and you're not, mashing up the vegetable too much where you're just, cooking it so that, it's tender, but you haven't
Mhm,
destroyed it. It's going to be absorbed more slowly. So the carbohydrate that is in plants, and especially the carbohydrate that is in whole grains, right? When you have whole grain bread, and it has the seeds in it and everything, you're
mhm,
very slowly absorbing that carbohydrate. And so it's not going to have the dramatic effect on your blood glucose.
right. Mhm,
In contrast, when you have processed starches, like what you get in snack foods,
mhm,
processed, sugar,
mhm,
when you have flour even, or white rice that's been cooked a lot, right? Or
mhm,
or
mhm.
instant rice, that carbohydrate gets absorbed really quickly and it makes your blood glucose go up rapidly. So,
Wow.
part of it is what the carbohydrate is in. Um, People need to eat fiber,
Mhm.
and fiber has the effect of slowing down the
Sorry.
absorption of carbohydrate. And so, as
Wow.
far as
Mm,
control of diabetes, that's an important part of it. In fact, they have a measurement, for how much your blood glucose goes up in a certain amount of
mhm,
time if you have the same amount of carbohydrate in one form or another. So, for example, if you have orange juice versus the whole orange, the rate at which your blood glucose rises with the whole orange is much slower than it
slower.
is for
Mhm.
the orange
That,
juice, right? So the
mhm,
more you keep it
mhm,
in the original package, right, the original
mhm,
food, the
mhm,
slower the absorption is, and that's important for control of blood glucose. Of course, people who have diabetes are counting their total carbohydrate intake, and that's an important thing too. Not just the form it's in, but the total amount, because they're matching their insulin to
mhm,
a particular amount of
mhm.
glucose that'll eventually get into the blood. So it's the total amount, but the forms are very important too, because that's what's determining how fast the blood glucose is going to rise.
Mhm. Right. I have a question. When people on TikTok, I see people making all these smoothie with the vegetables. When drinking the vegetables in the form of a smoothie and they add all these different things, does it slow down the process of the carbohydrates slower?
Okay, that's a great
Yes,
question.
yes.
The more you process the food, the
Mm-hmm,
more fiber you lose, right? So when you're
mm-hmm,
putting it in the blender versus just eating the whole thing, you're
yes.
getting a different, you're getting chopped up fiber versus intact fiber. And a lot of what fiber does has to do with its structure. It's
Mm-hmm,
trapping the
mm-hmm.
glucose and preventing it from going into the blood. It's slowing it down. But if you chop up the fiber, it's not going to have its full effect.
It's fully fixed. See, and it's so misleading on the internet with all these smoothies and they drink it and I'm so healthy.
Well,
And
because
how
people don't know what they're talking about.
then what they're talking about. This is so great. So I have another question. Someone who is full-blown diabetes, could it whether it be type 1, type 2, is type 2 worse than type 1?
So eventually, people with type 2 can have as serious diabetes as type 1, but type 1 has a quicker start, a kind of more intense start, whereas type 2 kind of, gradually builds up. So if you take care of your type 2 diabetes,
Mhm.
it's not going to get to be as bad as type 1, but if you're not taking good care of it, it will be.
Right. Usually when I take my physical every year, and my physical is great. It's just my cholesterol level keeps fluctuating.
Mhm.
And I was on medication, but the medication did not do anything. So I'm working on a way to make my cholesterol level go up. Do you have any advice for me?
So I could think of two
Mhm,
things. One is the cholesterol that's in your blood is in different forms, right? They talk about your
mhm,
LDL
mhm,
cholesterol,
mhm,
your HDL cholesterol. And the HDL cholesterol represents something that's good. It's your body getting rid of cholesterol
mhm,
that's in cells and bringing it back to the liver, right? The LDL cholesterol is going out to cells, it's delivering it,
mhm,
so
mhm.
that's the bad form. You can increase the level of the good form with exercise.
Yes, I do.
So that's one thing to do, to kind
Mhm,
of push more of it into the good
mhm,
form.
mhm,
Um, Other things, if you look at, I mean, again, the fish oil can be helpful in lowering cholesterol.
mhm.
So can, any kind of plant oil, olive oil. Really, what you
Okay.
need to do is to decrease saturated fat, which
Mhm.
is, mainly the meat fat.
The meat fat.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I do appreciate the time that you took to meet me on this little meeting, and I learned a lot from you. Some of it I knew, but I did learn a lot. I'm going to get me some fish oil tablets. And I do a lot of walking. Maybe I do a lot of walking. So I'm going to work on my cholesterol. And when we were speaking earlier, you mentioned about the liver.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did my blood work, the doctor always makes sure he checks because seeing my cholesterol is fluctuating. He said, I'm not too concerned because your liver is fine. And I was
Mm-hmm.
so grateful. Thank you very much and
Oh, you're welcome.
enjoy the rest of your dinner and have a great evening.
Thank you. So
Thank
nice
you.
to meet you
Okay,
in
yes,
person,
okay.
more or less.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Good
Bye-bye.
night. Bye.
Bye.